Life in Pixels. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we're going to be doing a speed build of Casa Caliente from The Sims Bustin Out. Y'all, I feel like it has been such a long time since I've done one of my Bustin Out inspired speed builds. And honestly, I think it really has been a long time since I last uploaded one of these. I actually recorded this build in the beginning of June, right before we got the update where we could do free window and stair placement, and I really wish that I would have had the update when I built this. That would have made window placement so much easier, but I do really like the way the windows and the doors turned out in the end, so it's okay. But yeah, then Eco Lifestyle came out, and I just really wanted to put out some Eco Lifestyle content while, you know, that was the hot thing. And honestly, not even just it being the hot thing, I wanted to play with that content myself. I was very excited for the pack ever since it was first announced, because that kind of stuff is just up my alley and the build stuff looked amazing. So I was really excited to play with that content. But anyway, back to the current build at hand. So if you haven't been following this series, I think this is the 8th build from Bustin Out that I have recreated in The Sims 4. And I'm not just recreating them exactly as they looked in Bustin Out. I wanted to update them for The Sims 4, give them more personality, not have the furniture just super awkwardly spaced out like the older Sims games had. Well, who are we kidding? Sometimes the builds that EA does is still very weird and spaced out, but I'm not going to talk about that here. So anyway, this is the first build that I think from this series that I've changed quite a bit from the original inspiration material. So originally, if you're not familiar with Bustin Out, all of the locations were just flat single story locations, all in just some vague suburban area, because that's just the technology that we had then. But Casa Caliente was like this love shack, this really 1970s inspired love shack place where when your sim came to live here, there was only one bedroom and it had a heart bed in it. Y'all, I really wish we had the heart bed back. That was such a fun item. But anyway, had a heart bed in it. The living room had this like cool open fireplace with this bearskin rug. There were lots of red tones everywhere. It was just like super romantic. And then the two Sims that lived here, they were by the names of Randy Hart and Paisley Rainbow. And Randy was this guy with this huge rainbow afro. He had on this Hawaiian shirt and these like bell bottoms with rainbow stripes on them and these heart sunglasses. Definitely very 70s inspired. And he was a really flirty sim. He would just hit on like everybody. He would randomly go up and kiss people. And so he was just the epitome of like a swinger, basically. And then his roommate, Paisley, she had the very classic early 2000s look of a female wearing a crop top, some bell-bottom pants, and a cowgirl hat. That was so very early 2000s. I lived through the very early 2000s as a teenager, so I definitely saw all of that going on. And it just cracks me up to kind of like look back on it like, ooh, those were such bad fashion choices. And also the early 2000s were definitely had a lot of 60s and 70s inspiration kind of came back in clothing and furniture and stuff. So it just kind of puts me on a little bit of a nostalgia trip when I go back and look at some of these things. But anyway, so for this build, I wanted to keep the Love Shack vibe to it very much intact. And so I decided to build it here in Sulani as an actual like beach shack. And the reason that this has changed a lot from the original source material compared to the other builds that I did is because, again, this build originally was just a flat one-story thing, middle of generic suburbia, but there was a little bit of a beach behind the original build where you could walk out on this little deck and there was a telescope where you could look out into the ocean. And you know, that sounds very romantic. You're trying to, you know, bring somebody back to your house. You're trying to woo them, like, oh, let's come gaze at the stars while we're standing over the ocean, that whole kind of thing. And no other world has really like beach stuff going on for it. I know there's a couple of beaches in Windenburg, but they're not really the same. So I wanted to do the Sulani thing. And also the original house had this large deck. Well, not even really a deck, just like a fenced in patio area off to the right of the house where there was a swimming pool. And because we're here in Sulani and we can swim in the ocean, I thought, why would I build an area where there was a swimming pool when we can just go ahead and swim in the ocean? And so I completely kind of nixed the whole swimming pool thing. And then I did build a deck here. And so it's kind of to the right and behind to kind of combine the replacement of the original structures. But then there's no telescope because we don't have just an average size telescope. I know a lot of us have been asking for that in The Sims 4 for years now, just for a regular size telescope instead of that huge observatory. But anyway, I did not want to put the gigantic observatory out here. I thought that would look quite ridiculous. So you can still come out here and sit on your patio or your deck rather and gaze out into the ocean, take a dip in the ocean. I thought it was much more romantic and fit the updated theme that I'm trying to give all of these builds and bring them into what The Sims 4 has to offer. So I am super duper excited for how this came out. But I did just want to, you know, make reference that this build is the most kind of strayed from the original source material. Though I kept the layout of the actual house itself exactly like the original house. And as always, I've kind of updated, you know, the decorations and stuff. We don't have a freestanding fireplace. We don't have a bearskin rug. We don't have the heart bed. There were also a bunch of heart windows in the original build, which were really fun and quirky. So there were things like that that I really missed when doing this build. We don't have a lot of the fun quirky items that we used to have in some of the older Sims games. So I did the best that I could. I still put a fireplace here. I did put a rug. It's not a bearskin. I totally had forgotten about the bearskin rug until I was looking at screenshots, and I actually still have my copy of Bustin Out and my PlayStation 2, so I did pop it in before I did all of these builds to actually look at the builds themselves, because there's not that many screenshots that are available online that I can really find that show like the layouts really well. So I did go back into my original Bustin Out game and look at all of these lots in person. So I kept the red theme, and I definitely think I gave it a lot of 70s, early 70s, late 60s, like hippie vibes. Try to keep it romantic. So I'm super duper excited for how this turned out. I can't wait to actually play in this one day. I do want to go and play in all of the houses from this series. I have downloaded from other creators their remakes of all of the characters, because I haven't really been that big into Create a Sim, and if you look at my channel, you can see I have a few Create a Sim videos up there now. I have been experimenting with it more. I've always just been more of a builder and then just an actual game player, but I didn't really mess with Create a Sim that much. But now I've been getting really into it. I've been experimenting more with making more characters, and I've liked that a lot. So I'm starting to do Create a Sims of all of the Bustin Out characters as well. There are so many excellent creations out there already from other creators, and I've enjoyed having those in my game. But I also, like, I'm just the person that if I like something, I like to try to recreate it myself. Not that the other person's is bad. It's just because I like to try to see if I can do it for myself. And so, just like with the builds, I'm not making my characters look exactly the way that they did in Bustin Out. I want to kind of give them, again, like an updated flair, put my spin on it, and see where that takes us. So those videos will start coming out slowly but surely intermixed with some other things. So by the time we get to the characters of Randy Hart and Paisley Rainbow, this video will have been out for quite some time because I'm very much a stickler for order. Like, once I have an order of something in my mind, I just have to stick to it. I've been building all of these in order of how you unlock them in Bustin' Out. So I'm just weird like that, so I'm making the characters in the same way. But we are about to head up on the screenshots in just a few seconds, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And check out my other videos if you want more Bustin' Out content. And I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!